Welcome to the Ask Brad Show. Be prepared to hear ideas, concepts, and strategies that may challenge the way you were taught to think about saving and investing for retirement. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to it. And now, the host of the Ask Brad Show, here's Brad Williams.
I remember when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and the doctor told her what he proposed to do. The first thing she did was went and got a second opinion. The second opinion bore out the first, and she went through the procedures. So second opinions can reinforce what you're doing. It can even change what you're doing. So let's talk about second opinions, though, for your investments. Because this retirement that you're building and have built, that's everything you've worked for. So you want to make sure you don't miss anything, that you're on the right track. Okay? Because if you don't, it could turn into a financial disaster. And the problem is with retirement is that oftentimes you don't really know it's a financial disaster until it's too late. And that could easily be avoided with a second opinion. Welcome. This is Brad Williams and the Ask Brad Show. And today I got a great show on tap for you, because we're going to talk about just that, second opinions. You know, I think probably the biggest thing is getting a second opinion. It's often about loyalty. I know I'm personally going through an issue where I am going to have a knee operation, and, original doctor told me I needed a new knee, and I'm getting a second opinion just to make sure. And then I'll make that decision. So when it comes to your money, maybe you've been working with the same broker, the same financial advisor for a long time. You might even consider them a friend. And loyalty is something we don't have enough of in this day and age. But what's important over loyalty, friendship is one thing, but when it comes to your money, that's another. What's the most important thing is getting the best possible advice for you and your family. Now, one issue some people have is procrastination. Some others, it's pride. They do it themselves. You look at it that, hey, I'm my biggest advocate. Nobody else is going to do this for me. But you know what? This is serious business, not about friendships. And the sooner you realize this, the better off you'll be. So on today's show, I'm going to reveal 7 reasons why getting an objective second opinion could literally save your retirement. And also, and this is important, the one red flag that's to send you running for the hills, and why your advisor may have a bias towards some investments or products. And that may not be in your best interest. It's just common sense. So often we look at second opinions. One of the biggest thing about the internet that I think is brought up is that when people are looking to buy a product, well, they'll check it out here, check it out there, check it out several places. You can get on Shop for Cars now and never set foot on a car lot. You've got the Carfax where you can find out if there's something wrong with it. So when you're doing all this diagnosis for your purchases, why not do that for your retirement? Why rely on just your opinion or your broker's opinion if you've been working with one for a long time? Sometimes getting a second opinion makes sense. One story I read recently in the paper about an 18-year-old girl, and she got a phone call from the doctor. She was working at a pizza parlor and was told she had a tumor on her ovaries and that she had basically 3 months to live. But she sought a second opinion, even a third opinion. And today she's 60 years old and cancer-free. So in her case, getting a second opinion saved her life. According to Gallup, 70 to 85% of people don't seek second opinions about a medical diagnosis. That sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? Because there's an old acronym, PI. Anything painful, important, or expensive deserves a second or even a third opinion. So think about that, PI. Always remember that. Anything painful, important, or expensive deserves a second or even third opinion. So painful, important, expensive. Well, I would say those pretty much describe your retirement. It could be an expensive lifestyle that's important. I mean, it's your retirement. If you don't get it right, it could be painful. So it's really important to get it right. And I mentioned about getting a second opinion on my knee. Well, let me tell you a story that happened to me back in 1982. I was playing racquetball with a friend, and there was some water on the court, and I was catching one off the back wall and spinning, and my foot hit that little bit of water that was on the court, and it caused me to corkscrew, and I dropped like a rock right there in the middle of the racquetball court. And fortunately, the gentleman I was playing with was a chiropractic student in his final semester of chiropractic college in Atlanta. And he knew exactly what I had done and made sure that the next morning I was at a sports specialist friend of his who helped start to take the pain away. Well, I also, coming from a traditional medical background, sought a second opinion, was told that I needed to get an operation on my back, that I had severely damaged my disc, and that the way to fix it would be an operation. Well, the sports specialist I was working with said, no, you don't need to do that. I can help you through this. And it was painstaking. My buddy would come pick me up at my place every day and carry me on a stretcher to the chiropractor. And that went on for probably about 3 weeks. I stayed in bed for 3 weeks. I wore a back brace for about a month. Then I started exercising again. Now, I want to bring something into perspective. This happened at the beginning of May in 1982. And when I got through the process, something important to me happened that I'd been working on for several years. Is that I was scheduled to take my first degree black belt test in Delaware that September. Well, I thought that was out. Well, with the work this chiropractor did, got me going. I really focused. And in September, I was there with the rest of them, and I took my test and passed it and got my black belt. So if I had listened to one doctor, I would have gotten an operation. I would still been recovering, and I would still have limited mobility today. So second opinions are important. From your financial standpoint, you got to look at what's the risk of getting a second opinion. Well, there's really no downside risk because you're in control. It's not that when you go see somebody, you have to do business with them, but it could be a way to confirm you're on the right course. I got a great referral from a guy once because his friend had come in, and I sat down with him, and after going over all his data and where he was, told him he really didn't need my help. He was doing a great job. And lo and behold, about a year later, I get a call from a person saying that he was referred to me by that gentleman. And I'm still working with that other gentleman today. So it's important to get a second opinion. Now, key thing that comes up a lot today is your advisor a fiduciary. So what does that mean? Well, are your financial decisions based on an advisor who's driven by commissions, or are they driven by someone who is working in your interest? Because a fiduciary responsibility is one that is working in your interest. And there's a suitability level, and then there's a fiduciary level. A lot of financial salespeople are on the suitability level. They ask you questions to find out whether what they're proposing you is suitable for you. Not that it's necessarily the best thing for you, only that it's suitable. And a lot of the companies are looking at that, and they approve the use of that product or not based on its suitability. What's important is working with someone who is a fiduciary. They're going to act ethically with your best interest at heart. So when you're fiduciary, you're basically knowingly accepting the fact that you're acting in the best interest of that other person. So when it comes to managing your assets, it's all about making the decisions because they're right for that person, because they're furthering them on that goal. When you're working with typical stockbroker, for example, they're going to have a bias towards stock. And if you sell someone who only sells annuities, well, they're going to have a bias toward insurance products. It doesn't mean any of these products are bad. It just means that, when all you have is a hammer, most things always look like nails. So it's important that they have multiple tools in their tool belt. And so you don't get a second chance on this. Once you set up your retirement and you're going through it, that's it. And you want to make sure you make the right decisions going into it. Now, as I've mentioned on other shows about, me being my financial GPS for my clients, it oftentimes requires subtle course corrections along the way, but we're not talking about major corrections. So if you want to have that conversation with us, we'd be happy to look over your shoulder to help you ensure that you're on the right track. And let me show you how you can make the most of every dollar you've saved with your retirement. I make it easy and simple by going through a set process. I believe that a financial advisor should be a financial educator, that you should know the details of what you're getting into, and that you should understand why certain things are used. So if that's something that interests you, I can give you a no-cost analysis, no sales pitch, no products for sale. Just give us a call, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, we understand the struggles that families and business owners face today. We want to help you develop, implement, and monitor a strategy that's designed to address your personal objectives and individual situation. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Thanks for listening to our show today. In retirement, you only get one chance to get it right, and we know that proper information leads to informed decisions. And that's why we hold free informational workshops in our area every month. Topics like Social Security, RMDs, the latest retirement tax strategies, IRAs, estate planning, and so much more. For dates and times of the next free workshop in your area, just pick up the phone. Give us a call today. Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Now, today we're talking about 7 reasons why getting an objective second opinion can literally save your retirement. You know, there are 5 critical elements of retirement planning. And if you're not looking at all 5 for your own personal retirement, that's a huge flag. That's a huge red flag. When you're working with your advisor, are you discussing Social Security, Medicare, taxes, income, fees, required minimum distributions? Today, I'm going to help you create a comprehensive checklist. And these are things you need to be talking about to your advisor. So get a pen and paper handy. If you're driving, just give us a call, 844-343-6048, and say, send us the checklist you talked about on the 5 things you need to know about retirement. If you're doing your own planning, this information could be critical for you. What matters most is getting the best advice for you and your family. You know, I do workshops on a regular basis, educational workshops, just done one. And, you know, it's always interesting that everyone comes in with a different story. And that means that everyone has different solutions. It's not a matter of, okay, take this test and see if you're conservative, aggressive, or moderate, and then we're going to put you in this cookie cutter portfolio. No, this is all personally designed, should be personally designed. Not everybody's got the same plan. You know, if you're not having discussions about taxes, Social Security, generating income, healthcare, talking about long-term care, inflations, required minimum distributions, you know, these are the conversations you need to be having. I think one of the biggest ones is taxes. Probably one of the most overlooked areas of investing. And it has a profound impact on your investments and your lifestyle, because just like in your income, it's not what you make, it's what you bring home. So looking at making sure your portfolio, your income plan is tax efficient as possible can save you lots of money. You know, taxes are a massive expense in retirement. Everybody needs to contribute to society, but why contribute more than you're required to? So it's paying what you need to pay and no more. And a lot of people confuse tax preparation with tax planning. They go to a CPA or an accountant or a tax preparer and they bring in their receipts, and then they get their taxes back. They sign them, they send them off, and they think, oh, sometime during that process that he's looked at my stuff or she's looked at my stuff, and they're going to tell me if they know any changes. Well, let me clue you in on something. In most cases, they don't have time to do that. They're working around the clock during tax season, and their objective is to make sure that all the boxes are filled out and everything's checked and that you're paying the right amount of taxes for your situation. They're not really looking at the fact of how can you change this situation. And some of the tax traps to watch out for require minimum distributions that you take once you hit 70 and a half. When you do those with your IRAs, your 401ks, you could pay a tremendous amount of taxes unnecessarily. One thing that might help would be a systematic Roth conversion plan. And that way, later on, you're getting tax-free income. The second item could be Social Security. And the way I look at Social Security, at least for people, 55 and up, is the backbone of their plan in retirement. That's kind of the foundation. One of the first things I do when I start working with someone is do a Social Security timing report, because Social Security is that steady, dependable income, and you need to make sure that you maximize it. But so many people leave tens of thousands of dollars on the table. And that's because claiming benefits is more complicated, more confusing than ever before. There's 2,728 rules in the Social Security handbook. And then there's hundreds of thousands of rules about those 27 to 28 rules. And that's their operating manual system. Forbes magazine reported that as much as $10 billion, and that's billion with a B, in Social Security benefits goes unclaimed every single year. So how and when you claim your Social Security not only impacts you, but it also impacts your surviving spouse. And it could trigger an avalanche of taxes. So there are some strategies that I help my clients with to show them that. And do you know what you pay in taxes to and where your income comes from affects your Medicare premiums? So claiming your Social Security at 62, for example, also changes what your spouse gets when you pass on if you're the primary earner. So again, that's tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 or more. That's a key thing.
Investing in the stock market these days is like riding a roller coaster. Leaving a place of safety, get on the coaster, hear the clickety-clack as you experience anticipation climbing to the top of the hill, followed by sheer panic as you plummet back to the earth, hoping you stay on track. You might be brave enough to repeat the process several times, going up and down, but never achieving higher highs and accomplishing nothing but anticipation followed by fear. The stock market has been doing this same ride of volatility with no real growth. Proper education, though, can help you find a better way to grow your money during these times.
Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Welcome back. We were talking about some planning tools that I help my clients with. We talked about Social Security and taxes. Next is income. Retirement's all about income. It's building streams of income. It's not just how much assets you have. It's the income you're getting from it. Stock markets go up and down. I often show my clients that total return is growth plus income. Are you building your retirement on growth? Or are you building it on income? Because growth can be elusive. Growth can be negative. Look back at 2000 to 2003. We had nearly a 50% loss and then nearly 60% from 2007 to 2009. Did you get any growth those years? If you were depending on the price of the stocks in your portfolio going up so you could cash them in for your required minimum distributions or your income, you were sacrificing future income from that to do that. So it's having an income plan. Okay. Now, a lot of times when you hear these buzzwords on the radio or whatever about income, a lot of times they're talking about buying an annuity with an income rider. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. That has a place, but not for everybody, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using income tools to build steady, dependable income. Okay. So to get that income, you're going to have to make your money last. We're living longer, which is great, but that means you got to make your money live longer too. So a good way to look at it's a mortgage. You know, if you've got a 30-year mortgage, when you make your first payment, most of it is interest and a little of it's principal. And so as you go through the 30 years, the next thing you know, you get to the end of it and the mortgage is paid off. Okay. So when you get into retirement, you know, it actually can work the same way. So most of what I might be getting that first year is interest on my money. But if I'm sacrificing a little principal because maybe the market's down, or that's my plan, is eating some of the principal, do you realize that it works the same way, that in 30 years that thing could be drained? Because the more you take a principal in the early years, the less interest you get in the later years. So when you're thinking about living to your 80s and 90s and you're retiring at 65, make sure you have a solid income plan and you're not depending on growth, that you're looking at the total return of your portfolio. And I'm not talking about bond funds, because there's some problems in that area too that I've done other shows on. So it's all about steady, dependable income. Then there's healthcare. People are going to spend upwards of $400,000 potentially for healthcare costs as they get older. So everybody who lives past 65 is going to need some form of long-term care, whether it's home care from their family or whether it's actual official, in a nursing home or assisted living. And those can get real expensive. The next area is inflation. You got to plan for that. So it's real important that you take care of taxes, that you take care of Social Security, make the right choices in Social Security, have a right income plan, have health care taken care of. And then there's inflation, because you've got to plan for inflation, because that will eat up your retirement. I remember when I was in high school, I worked at a theater. An adult could get into a movie at the theater I worked at for $1.75. What's the movie pass now? Like $12. Okay. So that's inflation. $1 in 1950 has the same purchasing power as $10.23 today. So with the way they print money, with the way the Federal Reserve works, it allows the government to pay back the debts they accrue with cheaper dollars. Unfortunately, it's a hidden tax to you. So keep that in mind. So as we look at all these things, this overwhelms a lot of people. It's complicated and there's a lot of details to it. And that's why a second opinion is so critical, because what I'll do in that second opinion is help you focus on these 5 critical pillars to make sure you get everything you can out of every dollar you have in retirement. That you're looking at investing as you move into retirement, looking at more investing for income than from growth. And I outline those reasons why. So if having a second opinion makes sense to you, give me a call, 844-343-6048. Be happy to give you a free 1-hour consultation. That's 844-343-6048. And that way you can make sure you're on track. I think it's worth an hour of your time, and it'll be worth an hour of mine.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, our goal is to develop enduring, long-term personal relationships with our clients, knowing that you have placed your trust in our expertise and dedication. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Have you missed any of today's show? Would you like to listen to past shows? We've got you covered 24/7. Visit AskBradShow.com. That's AskBradShow.com.
And we've been talking today about why a second opinion can be critically important for your retirement plan. It can help you figure out whether you're on the right track. You might see some gaps. You might find out that the financial products you're in are fairly limited to certain segments. That's why we're talking about the 7 reasons why getting a second opinion is so important. One big issue that I hear from a lot of folks as they start working with me is one of the reasons they came over is they didn't have a whole lot of communication with their advisor. One question I'd ask you is, when's the last time you heard from your advisor? When's the last time you ever went over your investment details with them? Did they explain their strategy long-term and short-term? Did they talk about your strategy and how you can avoid unnecessarily taxes, fees, and penalties? Have you talked about required minimum distribution? These are the topics of conversation you need to be having with them. Updating's a plan's a must. In one of my shows, I talked about how planes are off course most of the time, and that GPS brings them right back on track. Well, that's what a financial advisor should do, is those subtle course corrections along the way, not the big ones. You know, when the market's going down, the last few weeks has been rocky for a lot of people. Frankly, I haven't gotten a lot of phone calls. I send out information on a regular basis because my clients know what their strategy is. We meet on a regular basis. They understand about these things and they're positioned for them. And oftentimes it's not just about the investment advice. It's the planning aspect of it, looking at taxes, looking at healthcare, looking at all those things I talked about. Have your goals changed? Does your advisor know that? The last time you had a face-to-face with them was 5 years ago. I would imagine your goals have changed. And although they may be keeping you up to date with reports and things they're sending you in the mail, maybe a phone call every now and then, but if your goals have changed and they don't know it, they really can't make adjustments for it. But that's something that should be initiated by the advisor. An advisor should be checking in, should be arranging those regular meetings and see what's happened. You know, have you left an employer? Do you have a 401k now that you need to do something with? There's a lot of things that happen over time. If you're going to retire in the next couple of years, this is huge. You know, saving and investing is one thing, but it's what you do with that money. It's having a retirement income strategy. And a retirement income strategy is different than a growth strategy. In one of my shows, I talked about the retirement mountain. We have the ascent, which is accumulation stage. Then you have the descent, which is when you're coming down off the mountain. That's the distribution stage. Well, those are two separate phases of a retirement. If you're managing your money the same way in both, you're going to have some problems. You're going to have some problems because, as I highlighted in that show, most of the deaths on places like Everest come on the way down, not on the way up. You know, on the way down, you're trying to make things last. You've used your energy reserves. You're now trying to manage it. And that's why so many deaths happen on the way down. And so don't let that be something that happens to your retirement. What's your plan for Social Security, for Medicare, for taxes, for income, for health care? Do you know what you're going to do for these? Have you had those discussions? You know, our 5-step retirement action plan focuses on the 5 important things that can help you make the most out of every dollar you've saved for retirement, including some of the great opportunities in this new tax plan. So you got to get the most out of Social Security. You got to make sure that you got the right Medicare plan, you know, that taxes aren't killing you in that area. You got to make sure your money lasts as long as you do. Well, as I mentioned, if you would like to find out about our 5-step retirement action plan, have a free consultation to discuss how these affect you and do you have a plan for them, just give us a call, 844-343-6048. There's no cost, no obligation, no sales pitch, and no products for sale. Folks, this is just something I do for my radio listeners as a service. Just give us a call, 844-343-6048, and we'll be happy to give you that free consultation.
You know, many people contribute to their IRAs, 401ks, and other qualified retirement plans for years without fully understanding the rules, the tax implications, and options that are available until it's too late. It's like driving down the road to retirement without a map, or nowadays a GPS. For your free commissioned report on IRAs, call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Or visit us online at AskBradShow.com. That's AskBradShow.com. Call now for your free report. For your free commissioned report on proper tax planning, call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Or visit us online at askbradshow.com. That's askbradshow.com. Call now for your free report.
All right, we've been talking about 7 reasons why getting a second opinion is critical. And I do believe that. We talked about our 5-step retirement action plan and how you can qualify to get a free consultation to find out what that means for you. Now, let's dig down a little deeper in this. You know, as I mentioned about the retirement mountain, how you got the accumulation stage and then the distribution stage. You know, the climb up the mountain is the accumulation stage. The descent down the mountain is the distribution stage. And, you know, there's a lot of great advisors that are great at the accumulation stage, but their expertise is not in the distribution stage. Their investment tools, their expertise, maybe their companies are more focused on the growth side. Because I mentioned to you, total return equals growth plus income. And some years growth is elusive, whereas focusing on the income side, that's how you get steady, dependable income. So some advisors are better on the income side. Like I said, many of them are great at picking investments and letting it ride. Well, as we look at things now, you need to be constantly updating your plan because we're in the final legs, I guess, of a long upward market. So you need to make sure that you're not left standing when the music stops and you don't have a chair. As we look over, looking at your assets, making sure that they're in line with what you're wanting to do, because investing at 65 is different than doing it at 40. You have different objectives and your risk tolerances are different, especially if you're 75. It's a lot different than 40. So asset allocation, diversification, risk management, these are critical pillars of any financial game plan. You got to have properly diversified financial game plan. And it's got to mirror your appetite for risk. So when the market turns down, you don't need to be stressing. You don't need to be losing sleep. So you've got to have a risk management plan for that today. And we're in this for the long haul. If you've ever heard that before, that's not a risk management plan. Okay. What is the long haul? All right. When you're 40 years old, the long haul is to 65 or 70. Okay. When you're 65, what's your long haul? If you have a 30, 40, 50% decline in your portfolio in the next 5 years, what is that going to mean to the end of your retirement? It's going to mean a lot different retirement than you planned for. So, you know, I've been in this business 31 years. So I've watched. In fact, I remember when I left my corporate job to get into this industry in 1987, it was about 6 months into it that the crash in October of 87 hit. I remember sitting there on the couch watching CNN when they actually reported the news and was thinking, wow, what did I do? Did I make this huge mistake? And, you know, it came back, and it does come back. Sometimes it takes longer to come back than others. One thing I do is I educate my clients in market history, because market history is really important to understand the long-term aspect. You can't predict the short-term aspects of the market, but long-term trends. You can look at those and see that they're cycles, and they're fairly predictable cycles. So historically speaking, we're overdue for a bear market. I mean, we just are. And can you afford to lose 50% like in 2000 or nearly 60% like in 2007 or 2008? I mean, we've seen that twice in the last 18 years. You know, is it on the horizon? Don't know. Could be a year, could be another 2 year, could be, you know, a lot of people were thinking this October it may have been here. I personally didn't think it was going to come this October, but I'm sure some people did or were wondering as the market was going down. But you need to get back to fundamentals. Do you know the investments you own? Do you know your asset allocation? Do you know the downside risk? Do you know what would cause you to sell any of your investments? You got to know the answers to these questions. And the sooner you do, the better off you'll be. Another thing to look at is fees, expense transparency. One of the fastest ways you can improve your rate of return is minimizing investment fees and expenses. It's another case of 1%, 2%, or 3%. Doesn't sound like much over a short period of time, but long term could add up to tens of thousands, possibly more. You know, on CNBC not too long ago, Tony Robbins pointed out that 92% of Americans don't know they have fees in their 401k plans. 72% don't believe they're paying anything. Nothing could be further from the truth. So you got to look at that. Cutting fees by 1% could make your money last an additional 10 years in retirement. So when you look at the hidden fees and backdoor payments, they're costing Americans billions of dollars a year. So if you can reduce your fees, you can make your money last longer. Regularly when people come in to see me, when they show me their statements, and we're going over this in our first meeting, and I look and they're paying an advisor a management fee, that advisor has them in mutual funds. They're paying a fee out of those, and a lot of them aren't aware they're paying fees to the advisor to put them in the mutual fund, and then fees to the mutual fund for managing the mutual fund. So that could be an area you look at. The bottom line is, of all this we've talked about, as you plan for retirement, you got critical choices. They're forks in the road, and you're at one today. Decision could be about your advisor, could be about Social Security, taxes, income, the risk you take. Every one of these decisions is going to come with consequences, good or bad. I mean, we can talk about this all day long, but specific strategies for every person are totally unique to you. Minor differences in age, assets, risk tolerance trigger major shifts in your strategy. That's why relying on some rule of thumb or one size fits all, where you come in and take the test and they say either conservative, moderate, or aggressive, and then put you in that group of investments, may not be the right thing, because that could be growth oriented when you need income. Just remember, when you transition from the accumulation stage and you finish climbing the mountain and you're coming down the other side and you're going into the distribution phase, you need to have your portfolio focused on income and not growth. So, as I mentioned, our 5-step retirement action plan, where we focus on the 5 biggest issues that can help your money go further in retirement. It's up to you. There's no sales pressure to do anything, but I can promise you this. Your meeting will be educational, and you'll walk out of there with some solid tools and solid knowledge. Whether you work with me or not, you're going to come out of there with an hour. Hey, most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do their finances. Why not take an hour, find out if you're on the right track? Just give us a call, 844-343-6048. We can schedule a time to meet, review your situation. It's informal, but I'll ask you some basic questions. You can share your thoughts and then share the ideas that I have and see if they can change what you're doing, maybe make it better, whether you're do-it-yourself or whether you're working with somebody else. It'll be an hour well spent. 844-343-6048.
A message from Brad Williams Financial Services, LLC, right here in Huntsville.
Is your financial advisor performance-driven or purpose-driven? What I mean is, when you meet with them, is it all about returns and numbers, or is it about you, your family, and your quality of life? Do they know your goals, your aspirations, and the desires you have that you hope your money can achieve? Did they even ask? Is your financial advisor a partner in your retirement, or just someone who sends you reports? If you're looking for an advisor to be more of a partner for you and your spouse in retirement, call Brad Williams Financial Services at 844-343-6048. Call today and schedule a free 1-hour, no obligation consultation to discuss your goals and aspirations and see if we're a good fit. That's 844-343-6048.
Welcome back, and today I got a special guest. Her name is Karen Wright, and she came to me by way of a couple of my clients who had used her services. As I say over and over, I want my show's topics to be timely, informative, and typically they deal with finances, and I guess this indirectly deals with finances because as we were chatting, I mentioned that stuff is money, right?
Right.
So Tell me, Karen, what caused you to start Senior Transition Simplified?
Well, I started my organizing business, Life Simplified, in 2008. And shortly thereafter, I started working with individuals that were just facing a different season of life where they needed to have changes in their home. They needed things to be more ergonomically correct for them. And they may or may not have had family that lived close by to help them on a frequent or regular basis. So I just truly saw a need to help individuals that were facing later life transitions and wanted to seek out a certification that I could earn to be best equipped to help those individuals to right size their life.
And that's a big thing because right size is probably the right term.
Correct.
Everybody wants to say downsize, but that kind of has negative connotations.
It does. Yes.
But in reality, when you are changing, you're reducing the square footage.
Absolutely.
In most cases.
Yes.
It may be nicer square footage. Doesn't necessarily end up being cheaper than what you had,
sure,
but it's smaller.
Exactly.
Easier to manage.
Exactly.
I know when I got married 4 years ago, when I combined our two houses, and I'm a voracious reader, and I've got just boxes and boxes of books, and my wife said, what do you expect to do with all that stuff? Right. Well, I don't know. Right. We still haven't figured that out yet. Us in a storage unit later.
Yes.
But tell me, when people call you, why is it they call you? How do they know they need help?
Well, they know they need help when, and really this can apply to anyone, any age, is that it's just beyond what they can handle on their own. Over time, we just buy and collect more and more stuff. And there just comes a point to where it's just too much and time is an issue. People feel like they don't have time to deal with it. They're overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. And also stuff gets in the way and affects caring for homes, just the basic maintenance of a home. So usually when you reach that point where it's beyond what you can do on your own or partner, whoever's living within your household, that's when it's time to call a professional in to help get control over your stuff.
And that makes perfect sense because when you think about the challenges you faced, I was reading something just earlier today about the fact that millennials don't want their parents' stuff.
Correct.
And so all these things that we value that have, there were our grandmothers, this, that, or the other thing, they don't really care about. No. And so they end up being given away or sold or whatever anyway. So
exactly.
I guess it'd be better to do that yourself than you often see these estate sales and
yes.
You just wonder how much of that person's life is being given away they really wouldn't want to happen,
Exactly. So there's a lot behind it. There's a lot of emotional attachment to stuff and identity, and books are huge. I mean, so many of my clients are dealing with so many books. I know we had a client years ago. We went through about 5,000 books 3 different times to keep paring it down
right.
and getting it down and helping to right size and simplify their life. So yeah, it's a challenge, but we want to focus on barrier, safe living too. So okay. that, along with the right sizing is that you're in a home and it meets you in your life where you are now and what you need now, and focusing on that and living your life around that because, we want to travel more and just have more time on our hands to do things that we want to do and not spend it taking care of all this stuff that weights us down mentally as well.
And when you think about it, you got to house it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that deteriorates, you got to keep it temperature controlled. Most people got to insure it.
Right. And what square footage is it occupying in your home?
Exactly. It could be used for something else.
Exactly.
So all that makes perfect sense. Now, let's say that I call you and I say, hey, I need some help. Tell me how you get started.
Okay. So basically, I like to start with an initial consultation where I meet with the individual in their home environment so I can get just a visual of what's going on, what they're living in, just their authentic state of living. I don't want them to clean up before I come because I truly need to see how things are because I specialize in creating and implementing organizing solutions that work long term. So we want to be sure that I can see the reality of everything to understand the big picture. And then also if it's a downsizing, and we've even upsized people as well, but we want to bridge that gap to simplify bridging the gap from where they are to where they need to be. So I need to understand the total picture of that so that I can figure out what services they need from me and what is the most efficient and cost-effective way to bridge that gap for them.
Okay. And when you come in, how do you get paid? I mean, do you give them a flat fee? Is it an hourly thing? How do you normally do that?
Great question. So essentially, there is a charge for the initial consultation. And then from that, once I understand the big picture, then I step away from that and think through everything, because I'm not cookie cutter. Everything is very customized for the client and their situation. So I spend time putting that estimate together in writing. I send it to them within 24 to 48 hours. So I basically take the project, the big picture of it, and I break it down normally into 3 phases. Because the first phase, we're going to go through and do a purge and a sort and help them to make decisions. And then in phase 2, we're getting into packing and helping them to schedule that move, lining up real estate agent, scheduling estate sale, things like that. And then in that third phase, we're starting to facilitate their move process and then get them in their new home. We even move people outside the United States and help to set them up well. So we do this throughout the United States. So we basically break it down into those phases. And so that way it's priced not as a project per se. I like to break the components down, and that way they can look at their budget and figure out, where they want to invest. We have some people that want to do the whole package. We have some people that might have family that can help with some of it. Under my guidance, we can set a plan for that. So we really want to look at what's best for them, because we want to work in their budget and at their pace.
Do you find that maybe sometimes people do it in phases where they can afford it over time, and they'll do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3?
Exactly.
And I would imagine initially is the easy phase, because you go through your stuff and, I don't need that. I haven't touched that in a while. But then you get to that point where it's like, it's really hard to get rid of stuff.
Right.
And how do you help people cope through that?
So what we like to do is start with, I have a great team that works with me, and we like to work one-on-one with the client and focus on making the easy decisions first, not putting a whole lot of emotion and thought into it, but just like the quick kind of sort, the quick purge, the quick decision.
So they see some results quick.
Exactly. And then we start dividing and conquering, if you will. And then we get back to those harder, tougher decisions. And a lot of times I spend time one-on-one with clients because the answer is not the same for everyone. I need to understand where they are in their life, what's going on around them, what's their family, what's their grandchildren, and what are their lives like, and where are they living, and look at what the individual truly values. Because you mentioned earlier about, the stuff, and the children don't want it, the grandchildren don't want it. And so the parents usually get their feelings hurt.
Right.
So that's kind of where I get in the middle, and I can be the bad guy if I need to be and I don't want to be, but try to just be a liaison between and try to help both sides to understand and to not have their feelings hurt on things, because that's another benefit about having a professional in there, because you can get a lot of family arguments going on, just unnecessary added stress that really doesn't have to be a part of that whole process.
It's funny you bring that up, because I remember my mom was dying of cancer. And she had fought it long and hard, but she was losing the battle.
Right.
And she had antique stores and was just one of those connoisseurs of,
right.
And so she had a whole house full of stuff. Right. And I noticed my sisters were all great family. We get along great. We're putting their names on stuff.
Yes.
And I came to my mom and I said, Mom, look, I do this for a living. I've seen this. I said, I don't care whether you leave me anything, because you gave me the best thing you could give me, me and my mom.
Right.
But there's potential issues here when you're gone. Mm-hmm. So you need to give some thought to a solution. And I share this in many workshops, and I'll share it with you. The great thing she came up with was after she had died and my dad was moving to a downsizing. Mm-hmm. And we came in, everything that was left in the house was up for grabs, which was quite a bit of stuff. And there were 5 of us kids. We came in one Sunday evening and each drew a number. There were 5 numbers in a hat, and each of us had a pick, and we would go pick it and put it in our corner. And that way everybody had an even shot at everything. And what was wonderful about the night was that it wasn't the valuable things that went first. It was the memorable things. And so what could have been a big fight ended up being a night of sharing stories and just a wonderful
great time. Great celebration.
And so I ever since then, I was like, more people need to do that, because I have watched families get torn apart.
Yes.
When that happens. And I'm sure you deal with that a lot.
Yes, we do. And we have a system. We do a color code system with sticky notes. So if they have daughters and sons and they know there's certain things that they want to give to those children, we start tagging those appropriately. So all the pink sticky notes for the girls and the blue for the boys. And that way, as we're going through the project, we have those things noted so that over time when the kids come in town, if they were to be out of town or they can take pictures and send it to their kids, or I can do it for them and say, hey, we're thinking that you may want this. And that helps them to start making decisions, because we want to be sure that wherever they're going, no matter what size it is, that we're right sizing that furniture too and making good choices, and that they have the storage they're going to need, and to try to get into the family, trying to get away from the issues that sometimes arise.
Yeah,
as you mentioned, they do. Trying to offset that.
I understand that.
Yes.
So tell me, my final question to you is, as far as transitions, what's the biggest one you've ever done?
Okay, great question. So it's been about 4 or 5 years ago when I did, I would say, my first significant, huge move. And they've only grown from there. But the first 5 years, I did the business by myself. So I had moved an individual that most would call a hoarder. That can be defined many ways. That's a buzzword for a lot of people.
Right.
But I would say he was an avid collector of about 11 different hobbies, if you will. And just at least that I counted 11, that had just basically taken over his home and his life. And so within 90 days, I had him downsized from 4,000 square feet, a 3-level home, to a 1-level, 1,450 square feet in 8 hours flat of a moving day.
Wow.
It was the most organized move that the company that I work with, their manager had stopped by on moving day and said, this is hands down by far the most organized move that we've ever seen. And he said, it's all a result of what you've done and the color coding and the labeling and the zoning.
That's
and I
awesome.
had the room plans and all that. So that was just very rewarding to be able to help someone that felt so overwhelmed and felt like there's no way they could do it on their own. And they couldn't, because they had some physical limitations, some short-term things going on, and one child to help that lived local. So it took all of us. It took a team to do it. And from that point is when I started growing my personal team and training my employees to do this. And I'm very careful about who I bring on my team, because they have to have a love to help people. That's the heart and soul behind
your business,
behind what we do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, the biggest compliment that we receive is when they write the last check, they say it's the best money they've ever spent, and they couldn't imagine doing it without us. And I just take that to heart, because that's what I'm here to do, is just to try to help people in that transition and make it as smooth and stress-free as possible, because relocation stress syndrome is so high with a move.
Well, I really appreciate you coming by, Karen. And again, I hope you found this helpful. If this is something that is on your agenda, that downsizing or maybe a family member downsizing has been on your mind and in the family plan, then you need to contact Karen. Karen, how would they get a hold of you?
So they can call me or text me. My direct number is 256-316-1655, or you can go visit my website, which is yourlifesimplified.net.
Great. Why don't you give them that again?
Okay.
Your phone number?
It's 256-316-1655.
Okay. And that's yourlifesimplified.net.
Yes.
Again, if you've got a downsize issue, call Karen. And Karen, thank you for coming by.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, coming to the end of the show, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it was informative. And we look forward to talking to you next week.
That's all the time we have for today. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisory firm. Brad Williams Financial Services and Sound Income Strategies, LLC are not associated entities.
The opinions expressed on this radio show are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only. Moreover, no listener should assume any discussions or information presented serves as the receipt of or a substitute for personalized advice or from any other investment professional, and is not intended as an offer of solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Sound Income Strategies is not a law firm or accounting firm, and no portion of this radio presentation should be interpreted as legal, accounting, or tax advice. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation.